Welcome back to Ocala Talks on a Tuesday. This is one of these situations that I know all too well. The month of September marks back to school, the beginning of cold and flu season, and it's asthma peak week. That's right, the third week of September. More asthma attacks happen now. And Dr. Jamie Rutland, a triple board certified in internal medicine, pulmonary, and critical care. He's an expert in asthma and a national volunteer spokesperson for the American Lung Association. He, along with Jennifer G., joins us. She's someone currently suffering from living with the severe asthma. I suffer from asthma as well. Good morning, doctor. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I'm a longtime sufferer of asthma that my mom always said, he learns to deal with it. It's one of those diseases you got to learn to deal with it. Doctor, is asthma one of those things you got to learn to deal with?
You know, that was such an unfortunate message, learning to deal with it. I think it's learning about asthma is the most important thing. Is 2.5 million people suffer from severe asthma in the United States. So I think that educating yourself on asthma is the most important thing. And one of the things we like to do is if you visit our website at breakthecycle.com, you have resources like an AirQ questionnaire and also a resource where you can find a doctor in the area who specializes in asthma and more than likely the severe form of asthma.
Well, what is asthma peak week? Explain to us what asthma peak week is and why it's important to know about for those who live with the chronic disease of asthma.
Asthma peak week is defined as one of the weeks of September, usually the second or third week of September. What happens in September? Well, the seasons are changing. Grass is growing, so you get a lot of grass antigen in the air. You also get the return of respiratory viruses as kids return to school. They're passing around those respiratory viruses, and those viruses can attack your lungs and cause inflammation. And if you already have inflammation present, it makes those symptoms that much worse, and that's when you're going to present to your doctor with cough, shortness of breath, wheezing, and that happens most often in that second or third week of September, hence the name, the asthma peak week.
Dr. Rutland, how do people know if they may be at risk for an attack during peak week? Because I suffer from asthma. I have my inhaler with me at all times, but it's not something I don't feel like I'm gonna have an asthma attack at any moment. But I carry my inhaler just in case. So what is it about this week that makes it a little more dicey for people?
Yeah, what makes the week dicey is the fact that there's different antigens in the air. And all of these antigens in combination with these respiratory viruses can lead to that inflammation. And I think that people know their bodies. They know when the asthma attack is coming along. And if you talk to Jennifer, she can give you more details in regards to what's gone on recently, Jen.
That's what I was about to ask, because that's what my mom meant when she said he knows how to handle it. She knew I knew the signs of when an attack was coming on, and so I would slow down my play or something. But Jennifer, what's your experience has been living with severe asthma?
It's funny. It's been really, really hard. There's a lot of different challenges that come with it, and part of that is knowing what your triggers are, trying to avoid them. Things like not wearing your shoes in the house because it can track contaminants in, keeping your windows closed, which I know better. But yesterday, I actually left my windows open. It was a beautiful day, and it triggered an attack, and I had to go see my doctor. And so, it's really hard, but my motto is one day at a time, because as asthma, you've really got to be flexible when it comes to asthma.
The big thing you said there, a big thing is the shoes, moving dust around the house and everything. That's a huge deal. I got the Roomba. It goes every day, twice a day, 4 hours at a time while we're at work, trying to keep all the dust and pet hair and everything we can off the floor. Jennifer, we talk about peak week. Do you do anything to prepare for this week specifically, or is it an everyday preparedness for you?
It is every day, but at the same time, peak week, it is like a big word, and I know that I'm going to struggle during that week. So I always make sure that all of my asthma prescriptions are on hand. I've got my refills ready to go. I've got my asthma action plan in place. And, I just make sure to limit my exposure, to different things, stay inside as much as I can, and sort of write it out. And it's not always easy, as a fellow sufferer, I'm sure you know that. It's hard. It's really hard because you don't want that to dictate your life. But at the same time, you know what you need to do and, to try to limit your exposure to different things.
Doctor, how far have we come? I remember when I was a kid, my mom had my atomizer, and she would take the actual chemicals and she would mix them together and put them in there for me to use in my atomizer. How far have we come in understanding asthma and understanding ways to combat this severe chronic disease?
We've come such a long way. When you think about asthma, again, asthma is as a result of certain molecules in the air that end up stimulating the cells of your airway. And when those cells of your airway are aggravated, they start producing certain molecules that lead to the downstream events of inflammation and white blood cells being recruited into the lung, into the airways, causing the obstruction, causing the wheezing, the coughing, and the shortness of breath. As a result of understanding what we call the immunology or the inflammation of asthma, there are certain therapies that we can add that block some of this inflammation, leading to people not suffering as much. And I think that essentially what has happened is asthma treated locally, which is important. We looked at it as a local disease. Now we understand that it's more of a systemic type of disease that can lead to inflammation of the airway, and we will target that disease systemically, which leads to better outcomes overall, and it actually leads to people breaking their cycle. In fact, if you go to breakthecycle.com, you'll be able to find resources and experts, doctors, that understand that pathway and that can help you achieve your best self and your best love.
Well, I was fixing to ask you about Break the Cycle campaign and how it relates to Peak Week.
Yeah, when you look at breakthecycle.com, again, this is how it relates to Peak Week. It's really about educating the patient and understanding what your body is going through. So we have resources like the AirQ questionnaire, which help people understand if your asthma is currently under control. And it will guide productive conversations with your physician, who you can also find in our doctor finder on breakthecycle.com.
Well, so there's where everybody can go. If you would, Jennifer, what are some of the things, we got about a minute and a half left. What are some of the things you have to do on a daily basis to prepare to make sure you're doing your best to combat chronic asthma?
Staying on top of my medications, communicating with my doctor, especially when I'm having a bad day, staying up on the house chores, not because I'm a clean freak, but because, pollen and dander and all of those are triggers. Using an app to track my peak flow, to track my medication use, going to breakthecycle.com to get further resources. All of that is really helpful in managing my asthma.
We've been speaking with, excuse me, Dr. Jamie Rutland, triple board certified internal medicine and a national volunteer spokesperson for the American Lung Association, and Jennifer G., someone who currently lives with severe asthma. Jennifer, I hope that you get better with your asthma. I hope as you get older, it helps you. You get better and better at it. I've gotten to where I'm good enough now. I maybe have an attack once every 3 or 4 months instead of once every 3 or 4 days. So I feel like I'm doing very well, and I hope all the best for you. And doctor, continue giving out great information and letting people know about this disease that a lot of people are under the grips of, and a lot of people don't have a good understanding of. They just think, they're coughing or choking, when actually it could be a life or death threatening asthma attack. Thanks so much for both of you with the information you're giving, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Coming up next, Carol Ann Baldwin, Master Gardener Carol Ann Baldwin. She is in the